Hello, Stewart. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. How are you? I'm glad to be on the show.
Yes, people are now starting to line up into the chat room. They have been waiting for this show. I had you up on my website for like 2 weeks. So they were really excited about you being on our show tonight. And just for those who don't know who you are, let's break down and let's talk about your background. Let's talk about who you are and why you wrote the book Blue Blood, True Blood.
Well, first of all, I have very interesting history family-wise. My great-uncle was the first president of the Soviet Union. In fact, before the revolution, he was roommates with Stalin in the Gulag, and Stalin wrote a lot about him. And my grandmother was a communist Russian spy. Of course, that was in World War II, when in those days the Soviet Union and the Americans were allies against the Nazis, so it was okay back then. My grandfather was sent here to the United States to help start the Communist Party back in the 1920s and 30s. And because of that, I was very closely monitored. My whole family was very closely monitored by the U.S. government up until this very day. And that is why back in 1970, I was taken into service in the Montauk Project. And by the way, I need to correct one thing. I'm not the only survivor. There are many survivors. So I don't know where that came from, but there's many out there.
Okay, I do apologize. I had read something on you when I was doing some research, and I thought I had read something that said that, but I do apologize. I'll make the correction. Okay, so let's talk about your experience through the Montauk Project and whatnot. What is that? Can you explain to my audience exactly what that is and what your role was in it?
Yes, the Montauk Project existed from 1970 to 1983 in Montauk Point, which is at the eastern end of Long Island, New York. It was part of an underground area that was actually started by George Washington back in 1799, when he built a lighthouse and an underground storage area to have weapons and supplies against British invasion back then. And over the centuries, it was added to and grown to encompass a very large part of that eastern part of Long Island. But even as they dug deeper into the ground, they uncovered underground areas that were previously existing and were actually part of an Atlantean archipelago that stretched from Montauk Point down into the Atlantic Ocean, even into the Caribbean. So it's quite a fascinating thing that they found there with technology and all sorts of interesting artifacts. And I was used for genetic experiments, mind control projects, everything that you can think of. In fact, because of what they did to me for 29 years, I was physically blind. All I could see was energy fields, and what they were trying to do was create a person who could see into other realities without the use of devices, basically making you into a human machine or computer. And so for that many years, all I could see was energy. And that's how I do my work today. Of course, that almost 11 years ago now, I had surgery to reattach my optic nerve to my brain, and now I can see physically, but I also have the overlay of the energy. So when I look at a person, I see their physical body as well as their energy field and their organs, DNA, etc., and their mind patterns, and that's how I do my work. Montauk Project began as an outgrowth of the Cold War. As your listeners may know, back in 1947, when the Roswell event occurred, that was a staged event so that there would be fear. The Nazis were gone, the communists were kind of distant, and so they needed to create a fear for the American public and the global public so that they could create control systems in order to alleviate those fears for the public. But when they realized that basically a few 100,000 people cannot control 6 billion people or more than that at this point, armies and weapons aren't enough, and so mind control, they felt, was the best thing to control the population. And that's what Montauk was really about. And from that, they also did weather manipulation, all kinds of rituals that occurred there. It was quite basically a hellhole. Thinking of it underground, there were 9 levels of it underneath the Earth that connected to ancient tunnel systems that crisscrossed the entire planet. So it was quite an extensive operation back then.
Wow. And as far as you know right now, as far as the things that are going on right now, I did some video series myself of underground bases that I had been showing people on my website, isiswisdom.com, so they could see, something's going on. Now, I was under the impression that it had something to do with maybe perhaps something that's going on cosmically with our planet, and perhaps they're making some arrangements to try to make some preparations to hide or get out of Dodge. I'm not exactly sure, but maybe you can give me some insight, some deeper insight into that. What is all these underground bases really about?
Well, that's a very big question, and your listeners may also know that the very first underground base that was created by our government was back in 1954 in the Dulce area of the Four Corners of New Mexico. And that base was given to an alien group that met with the President of the United States back then in the California Air Force Base, where the American government gave these beings the right to abduct U.S. citizens as long as they gave them a list of who they abducted. Their minds were supposed to be wiped, so there was no memory. They were supposed to be returned to their place of origin and unharmed. But of course, over the years, that developed into something quite different. And then we established our own underground base using technology that was given to us by other alien groups. It became quite a long, convoluted, and complicated situation, so that now in 2010, there are way over 150 underground bases just in the U.S. alone. There are bases in almost in every continent on our planet, under the oceans, etc. Not all of them are Earth bases. Many of them are alien bases. Some of them are mixed human and alien bases. They have an agenda all of their own. Each of the alien groups that come here, some of them claim to be friendly, some not. But no matter what they claimed, they all had their own agenda, and none of them had our best interest in mind. And you have a good point there about what the heck is going on now, because readers of my site, expansions.com, know that for the last few months, I have been talking about what is going on out there in the Kuiper's Belt, way past Neptune and Pluto. And
right.
And there have been literally hundreds, if not thousands, of objects, some of them huge, just ringing our solar system as if they were surrounding it. And that's when the government decided to begin becoming a little bit too suspicious for the public, for astronomers. And so they said, well, that's just part of an area out there. And even Pluto is part of that. So they kind of defocused from the new objects out there. And that's why Pluto was changed classification. It's not a planet anymore. It's something else.
Right.
To this day, we don't know what the heck they call it. But that's just a diversion from what's going on out there. Then recently as November, October of 2009, there were little news stories saying that objects were found in the Kuiper's Belt that were actually orbiting in the complete opposite direction of everything else around our solar system, which was very suspicious. So anyway, there's a lot going on out there. It's really a fleet of many, many different species from many, many different locations, both in this universe and other universes. And so the Illuminati are basically surrounded. Now, that doesn't mean we should, cheer that we're being liberated, because we're not.
Right.
Whoever comes here to change things has their own plan. So it's basically like going from one ruler to another ruler, and we're kind of in the middle, and it's not a good thing. But my feeling is, whomever they are and whatever their agenda is, it has to be better than what we've got now.
Well, have you noticed and heard about all the activity that's been taking place around the sun lately?
Yes, and that's
what's in the
another.
past.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I put a video up on the site where they show this huge, like, unidentified flying object.
Several of them. And you know what?
Identify it. Yes, there were several of them. And I have an uncle. Let me just say this one thing. I do have an uncle that works for NASA.
Mm-hmm.
He can't talk to me that much, you know what I mean, about things. So I have to try to get at him in other ways and whatnot. But nonetheless, there's something going on with our sun as well. Like there's some serious activity. NASA just did a launch. I think it was either Sunday night, either the day of the Super Bowl or Monday. CNN is reporting Monday. I'm told it happened actually Sunday, the day of the Super Bowl, when everybody was distracted. You know, I don't know. I don't really know exactly what's going on, but I know that there's something going on.
Oh, you're absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And, you know, I've been saying that many of these objects out there in the Kuiper's Belt and many of the beings have never, ever been seen before. No one knows who or what they are. And many of them do not come from this physical universe. And if people are familiar with my simultaneous existence DVDs and seminars, you know that I have talked for many, many years about how there is travel interdimensionally in our universe. A star in one universe is a black hole in another universe, and vice versa. And that is how energy travels or balances between all of the universes in creation. It's kind of like breathing in and out between the stars and the black holes. And so these huge objects that have been seen by the cam that NASA itself had focused on the sun and showed these huge objects coming out of the sun, that to me proves what I've been saying, that the sun is really a stargate and that objects can pass out of it. You know, they enter a black hole in one universe and they exit through the star in another universe, which is our sun, and any star could be an exit from another universe, and they are joining forces with those objects in the Kuiper's Belt for whatever purpose we're about to find out, I think the second half of this year. It's getting quite serious. And I find it very humorous that NASA said, oh, those objects are from a glitch in the satellite photograph equipment that's not really there. But when you look at the close-ups and delineations of these objects that people have done, you can see that they're vehicles. You know, you can actually see that they are vehicles exiting the sun.
Now, someone just wanted me to ask you a question real quick from the chat room. They said that they want to know, could you tell them about the strange ruby star that was reported over Australia? They actually sent me a link to the article from a site called colinandrews.net. Are you familiar with that?
Well, you know, interesting about Australia, because for the last couple of years, the government has been using that area to test Bluebeam Project. And your listeners may be familiar with Bluebeam. It is a technology where satellites and other equipment actually can project multidimensional images into our atmosphere so that people think that they're suns or UFOs or religious figures or what have you. And they have been using both Canada and Australia and Norway as test areas for the Bluebeam Project in preparation for the staged alien invasion that they are going to impose upon the world very shortly. And the interesting thing is, you know, when it happens, we will have to ask, okay, is this the staged alien invasion from the Illuminati, or is it the real one from the Kuiper's Belt?
I was just getting ready to say, why are they planning this at this time, knowing what's out there beyond the Kuiper's Belt? Like, they got to know that something is on its way here. And I'm a firm believer that they already know it's on its way here. They've probably already been communicated to, probably, to some degree. You know, why would they stage something like that knowing that something is on its way here right now?
Well, they planned this for decades. You know, and I wrote about it in the Blue Blood book. And the idea was to create the staged alien invasion to scare everybody into a global government that has to unite to fight this alien invader. And then they have a savior race that will come and chase the bad aliens away and proclaim themselves the ancestors of humanity. and then they will have the second staged coming of Christ, who will proclaim the New World Order, the holy new empire of the earth, and that's how they will consolidate the belief system and political system of the earth. Now, yes, this Kuiper Belt thing showed up and threw a wrench in the works, and I think that's why they're speeding things up. You know, they make things happen very fast. They're getting sabotaged a lot. You know?
Yes. Yes.
You know, I think and the CERN Hadron Collider in Switzerland has been sabotaged. A lot of political things have been sabotaged. And so I think the Illuminati are getting a little bit scared. They're starting to make a lot of mistakes. But here's the scary part, and that is when they feel really cornered, they're not going to care what they inflict upon the earth because they'll think they have nothing to lose. That's the scary part. So
right. Now, no, go ahead. Finish up.
So we just need to be prepared for anything.
Right. And let me just ask this one question as well. Now, I've been saying for a long time, and this is the reason why I was able to resonate with your book, I have been saying for a long time that whoever Illuminati is working for can't be from this place. And the reason why I felt that way was because some of the things just didn't make any sense. I mean, you poison the air, don't you have to live on the same planet that we live on? You poison the water, don't you have to drink the same water that we drink? You poison the food and you turn it into GMO foods, don't you have to eat the same things that we're eating? It's like you're destroying the atmosphere and the environment of our planet. So it led me to ask questions like, who are these people really, okay? Who really are they? Are they even human themselves? Okay, and then if they are human, who are they working for? And if they aren't human, what and who are they?
Well, that's a lot of questions there, Isis.
I know. I'm just telling you what was going through my mind to say. What was going through my mind.
Well, I'll tell you.
So I was wondering. Okay.
You're correct. These beings, this Illuminati family, which I outline in Blue Blood book and a few other books I have, but they don't care what they do to the planet, because from a reptilian mindset, which is what they have, they're based on fight or flight, destruction, and fear. That's how they live, and that's how they go about their lives, and they also use mind control and programming to perpetuate their civilization. So everything is based on fear. Fear opens up the mind. That allows more programming to come in, and that allows control systems. You know what? They don't drink the same water, and they don't eat the same food. They have their own preparations, if you will, and where they have their own systems where they support themselves. They also have huge underground areas and bases where they have their own supplies to suit them. This was brought up or revealed back in 9/11, because for years and years I was saying and talking to people about the underground cities, the underground bases, especially in the West Virginia. And then right there on CNN, the day after 9/11, they said that President Bush was being kept in a secret location, and they suppose that he has gone to the largest underground area in the world, which is the city underneath West Virginia, which is a government behind the government. They actually announced that on CNN. I almost fell off my chair because they just said everything I'd been saying for years out there in public. And so,
wow.
Yes, and so they admitted what they had. But then, how brilliant, they said, aren't you happy that these places exist so that if Washington is destroyed, we still have a government underground? Does that make you happy, Isis?
Oh, jeez. Jesus,
yeah.
Lord have mercy.
Exactly. You know, what about the rest of us above the ground?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, well, what about, I call it the surface people. You know, I'm familiar about the military bases underground. I know about the one that we have up in, they used to have a base called Fort Ritchie, Maryland. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Fort Ritchie, Maryland, right next to it was Site R. Site R is a military base that's right in the mountain, right next to, probably about 20 minutes or 20 miles adjacent to Camp David. And the only reason why I know about this is because I come from a background of military. So I had family that was stationed at Fort Ritchie, and back in the day they used to let you go into the base, and it looked just like a city, but what they called it was the Underground Pentagon. So I knew that they had, they were talking about how I was explained to me back then that they had tunnels that led from Washington, D.C. up to Fort Ritchie, Maryland in the event that, we would be attacked or, so forth and so on or whatever. It would be these underground tunnels that they was explaining to me back in the day. And I can so distinctly remember this as a kid because they shut all that stuff down now. You can't take any tours now, but I just remember that. And ever since then, I've always had a fascination with, well, what else is going on? What else is going on with our Earth? So now let's jump to the mind control aspect of things that are going on right now with, the television and the radio and so forth and so on. There's some serious mind control. And I mean, I'm starting to realize now that just about everything that I've ever learned is not correct. You know what I mean? It's very disturbing when I sit back and I think about it.
Everything that we have been taught in school about history, about science, about biology, it's all a bunch of malarkey, And going back to what you said about those underground bases, especially in Maryland, they also connect to the base under Fort Detrick, Maryland, where
Fort Detrick.
The biology stuff is, and also to Fort Meade, where the NSA is located.
Yep.
It's all connected, and so yes, mind control. Well, that's a very big topic, and I would tell people to read my books on that: 13 Cube, True Reality of Sexuality, Hyperspace Helper book. Read all the information about it. It's very pervasive. 100% of the Earth is mind controlled at this point. In the old days, they used to actually have physical sessions where they would traumatize children and other adults, and they would fracture the mind pattern, reprogram the fractured pieces of the personality into alters or sub-personalities. But these days, in the last 10, 15 years, they can actually program you just during the day and night from satellite transmissions and microwave towers, cell towers, while you're sleeping, while you're walking around doing your work. It goes right into your brain, alters the mind pattern, fractures the personality, and creates this matrix of programming within the person. And then there are triggers that you can hear on radio, television, movies, even from satellites, that will bring up or activate or trigger the sub-personality or a function into whatever is needed at the moment. It's a very big topic. We see things on the news every day that is connected to this mind control programming. All these snipers, all these murderers, that's part of stalker programming, assassin programming. It goes on and on and on. It is a huge, vast topic.
Well, one of the things that I paid attention to, I was living in Maryland, which is really where I'm from. I was living in Maryland at the time when the whole D.C. sniper thing went down. And the crazy thing about it was that one of my good friends actually served him at the Shoney's restaurant in a town called Hagerstown, Maryland. I don't know if you're familiar with Hagerstown.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really funny because the first thing I thought was, when they talked about this guy and after they caught this guy and the way he was doing the random killings, I mean, the guy was only found like 15 minutes away from my house. Like, that was so disturbing. Like, I was so scared to have my daughter go and catch a school bus. But I thought it was really odd because the first thing that came to my mind, Stewart, was this guy's a Manchurian candidate.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I thought. I was like, this guy is a Manchurian candidate because they were talking about, like, I looked at when he died, the time that he died, which was 9:11 a.m. in the morning. I just peep all that kind of stuff out. And I just found it really strange how they were talking about, how this, how he was in the military, how, they don't really know what triggered him. And I like the word that they used, triggered, and I just thought that was kind of odd. When I look at, like, random killings like this, I tend to ask the question, what is really going on behind the Iron Curtain? I've always been an inquisitive kid. I've always been the one to say, okay, I'm going to take this for face value for now, but then at the same time, if some things stick out to me that doesn't make any sense. So the day that he died, they said he didn't have any emotion whatsoever. And I just kept thinking this guy was a Manchurian candidate. That's just what my heart kept telling me. Like, this guy was under some type of mind control and this guy did it. And I just want to get your opinion about that.
No, you're absolutely right. And what he had was called assassin programming and vigilante programming. And that was what was being tested out, because there's coming to a time when we have the staged alien invasion, New World religion, all these things being imposed upon us, when there are people who refuse to go along literally with the program and want to rebel against what's happening, they are activating these vigilantes to stalk the ones who are against the government and what's going on, and to eliminate them, or at least identify them so that they can be taken away. That is what he was about. And if you remember back in that time, there was quite a number of these snipers all across the United States, in various locations. There was the guy in the Amish country in Pennsylvania who occupied that little school there and killed all those poor little children in Pennsylvania. There was what happened in Littleton, Colorado, if you remember. That was also that vigilante programming. It was a test to see if, when they turn or trigger on these programs, who will respond? Will the ones who are supposed to respond? And they found out their answer, see? And then they know how to fine-tune the triggers and the activations so that when the time is right for all of them to be activated, it will be very smooth for them. And that's only the beginning of what we're going to be seeing.
Okay, we're at the top of the 30-minute hour. When you guys get a chance, make sure you log on to the website, isiswisdom.com. Log on to my hip-hop site, wordonthestreetsmag.com. And if you want to know more about Stewart Swerdlow, make sure you log on to his website, expansions.com. Stewart, I'm going to go ahead and take a call and let somebody ask you a question. They have their hand up here.
Okay.
Caller, 1643, you're on the air. Do you have a question for Stewart?
Good evening, Isis. Good evening, Mr. Swerdlow.
Hi.
I have a question. In 1993, a man by the name of Stephen Greer created an organization called the Disclosure Project. To your knowledge, is this a part of the programming to basically bamboozle society into the program of creating an alien invasion, or is his organization legitimate and actually bringing to the forefront the government's involvement with other creatures from other dimensions and planets, so on and so forth?
Well, you have a very good question there. It kind of puts me in a precarious position because I always state that I don't like to talk or criticize or comment about the work of others. But I can tell you just generally, without referring to that individual, that any so-called disclosure publicly is orchestrated by the powers that be, and the information that's revealed will be carefully crafted so that only certain kinds of information are revealed in the way they want it to be revealed. So basically, the truth is not coming out the way we would like it to be, but the way we are having it imposed upon us.
Indeed. And I said the same thing. I just wanted to hear what you had to say about that, because from my perspective, anytime you have individuals who worked for the government previously and had very high positions, to be in a precarious position like that and to gather with other individuals who are of the same cloth, I find that to be a bit strange.
I agree with you.
And for you to still be walking the earth and to be alive, I find that to be quite strange. So I just wanted to know, if the Disclosure Project created by this individual is basically a program, because as you well know, they have tons of programs running simultaneously. So I just thought it was interesting in the way that they were presenting their information, and just to hear him speak and so on and so forth is just very fascinating.
I agree with you, and I appreciate your point of view. And just so that the listeners know generally, whenever there's an official revelation, if you will, about such a topic, don't believe it.
Well, thank you, sir, for answering my question, and thank you, Isis.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Wow. For those who are currently listening to the show right now, if you have any questions for Stewart Swerdlow, make sure you call in to 347-884-8787 and press option 1, and we will allow you to ask some questions. Now back to the interview, Stewart. Okay, so I remember you talking about specifically where you were describing the alignments of our planetary system. And I was wondering if you can kind of touch on the original alignments and the way they are and how they came to be at this point in time. And I did go back and I did look at some of the ancient drawings, and I did notice that Venus itself is actually a newer planet. And I just wanted you just to touch on that because I know they had talked to you about some things. They had schooled you and told you about things that were going on and so forth and so on.
Yes, yes. Well, originally the configuration of our solar system was very different than what we have now. In the beginning, yes, Mercury was the first planet that always has been. Then there was the Earth. Earth was actually in the second position from the sun, and it was generally a water planet. It was covered, almost 100% with water. Even the atmosphere was very liquid in nature, and it was a hot, humid environment. Then came the planet Mars, which was very Earth-like in those days, and even had an atmosphere like we have now, and oceans and seasons. It was very much like we experience here now. Then after that came a larger planet that was we call now Maldek, which was very large, also had an atmosphere and oceans and was very inhabitable. Then we had Jupiter, what we see now, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. And that was basically it. Now, going way, way back in history, and I'll try to make it very short, the origin of all human life in our galaxy was in a star system called Lyra, and the Draco star system had a reptilian civilization, which it still does. And to make a long story short, the Draco attacked the Lyrian civilization, basically destroyed it, sent the survivors spreading out across the known galaxy, even to our current solar system. The only planets that were colonizable here was Mars and Maldek. And so the Reptilians had an agenda of spreading out across the galaxy to destroy and or assimilate other civilizations to make them reptilianized. They discovered the colonizations of humans on Mars and Maldek, and they sent into our solar system an ice comet that was designed to destroy those colonies. When the ice comet came close to Uranus, Uranus flipped on its axis and is the only known world that actually orbits from a north to south instead of west to east orbit. And that's because of the disturbance from the ice comet. As it approached Maldek, the geomagnetic forces between the ice comet, Maldek, Jupiter, and the sun was so great that Maldek exploded, creating what we now have as the asteroid belt between Jupiter and Mars. As it got closer to Mars, the force, the gravitational pull, removed much of the atmosphere and oceans of Mars, leaving it to what we know now. And finally, as it approached the Earth, the force, actually the weakened force of the ice comet and the Earth caused the two objects to go into a circular spin around one another, polarizing the oceans on the Earth so that they created polar ice caps and actually pulled the water off the planet, off the atmosphere, so that land masses were enabled to go above the surface. And ultimately, the ice comet took up the second position around the sun, pushing the Earth into the third position where we are today. And the ice comet then became what we now know as the planet Venus. But because the ice comet was now in an orbit so close to the sun and so hot, it caused the ice to evaporate and create what we now know as the cloud cover around Venus, which we see to this very day. And that's how our solar system was configured. You know, Pluto was only discovered in 1930, and that's because it didn't exist there until then. It is an artificial object that is there as an outpost, as an observation for the rest of the solar system. The Earth, though, at that time now became colonizable because it was now had land masses above, and so the reptilians drove a vehicle into orbit around our planet to colonize it. We call that vehicle the Moon. The Moon, as some of your listeners may know, is the only known object in space that only goes around the Earth as a moon and does not spin. Only one side faces the Earth at all times. It does not spin.
Right. Right. And I always wondered about that. Like, I've always wondered why it didn't do that. you know what I mean? Like, why doesn't it do that?
And that's because it is a vehicle that's parked in orbit. You know, it doesn't spin. It's just parked in orbit like a vehicle, and that's why only one side faces at all times. And if you send a sonic resonance off of the moon, like the Russians did in the 1960s, the moon pings like a hollow object. It does not thump like a solid object. And the Russians determined way back then that the moon was hollow and artificial. And it has since been proven, even by NASA, that it is not from our solar system. It is made up of minerals and materials that are not from here.
Right. Now, let me just say this one thing. I saw this documentary. If you guys are listening, if you guys get a chance, check out this documentary. It's called The Greatest Story Ever Denied. And you can just Google it. It's on Google Video. You can watch the 2-hour video. But the dude that shot the video, I was really fascinated with the pictures and the information that he had that showed literally like the moon is completely colonized.
Yes.
And I just want to know, is that one of the things that you also learned whenever you was going through the experiment and whatnot? Did they talk to you about that?
Oh, absolutely. And you know, if you have any of you out there have a telescope with at least a 60 x magnification, on a clear night, on a full moon, train that telescope at any crater on the moon, and you will see movement, lights, buildings. You will see activity on the moon. And, you know, that is why whenever there is a flyby of the moon or Mars or what have you by a NASA vehicle, they never transmit the pictures, you know, live. They always take their time, doctor up and remove the images, and then reveal them to the public, because they don't want you to see what's going on up there. The moon,
right?
The moon has been inhabited since it got here because it was a vehicle.
Right. A person asked you in the chat room. They've been having some dreams about tidal waves, flooding, and tsunamis, and she's in L.A. And she said, "Could you give her some insight into what's going on?"
Yes, get the heck out now. I'm serious.
I mean, you know what? That's real, because you heard about the earthquake they had in California last week. That was a 6.0.
Right off the coast in the north, and there have been a lot of off the coast of San Diego as well. Look, I have been saying for years that California is basically doomed, and especially Southern California, and specifically in an area just south of Santa Barbara, down to the Mexican border and east of the San Gabriel Mountains. That whole strip along the coast will submerge in a cataclysmic quake, which is going to happen at any moment. If you look at the USGS.gov maps, which they don't even show you everything, but what they do show you is scary enough, the whole Pacific Rim in the last couple of years has been really rocking and rolling, and the only place it has not been severe is in California, because it had been locked under the subduction zone along the San Andreas fault line. Now, scientists have even discovered as little as 2 years ago that subduction zone has been pushing magma into or underneath the North American tectonic plate. As far as Tucson, Arizona, they discovered magma moving under Tucson, Arizona. So even that area is in danger of something going on. Anyone living along the west coast of the United States really needs to take precaution. The USGS has even said that the Pacific Northwest around Vancouver, Seattle, Portland is the most dangerous territory on the Earth at the moment. It has the same tectonic configuration as we saw along the west coast of Indonesia when that cataclysmic quake occurred in 2004. The last big quake that occurred in the Pacific Northwest was in 1700 that sent a tsunami, a fatal tsunami, to Japan across the Pacific. If that were to happen again today, which it will, there'll be no buildings left standing in Seattle or Portland or Victoria or Vancouver. The whole place will be destroyed in a 9+ quake with 100+ foot tsunami, and then the volcanoes will start to go off. It is a really bad zone. I don't recommend anyone to live there. Seriously. Now, of course, you think I'm saying, okay, pick your stuff up and flee. Well, yes, because you know what? It is going to happen. It may not be today or tomorrow, but it is going to happen, and I certainly would not want to be there when it does. And all my clients in Seattle and LA and San Francisco, what do they say to me? Well, if it happens, it happens. We've had them before. Well, you know what? You never had a 9+ before that you've experienced, and when it happens, you're not going to leave. That's it. That's the end, because there'll be nothing left. So if you don't get out now while you have a chance, you're really putting yourself in jeopardy and your loved ones who are with you. So even if you don't care so much about yourself, think about your children, your parents, your wife, your husband, whoever it is that you love and cherish. You want to save those people. Get out of there. Seriously, it is not a good place to be at the moment.
Now, I know that you know about the Heart Project.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get your opinion. I was the first journalist ever, period. Nobody came out on the news and said this except for me. And then it kind of trickled down from there after I put it out there. But the Haiti earthquake that took place at the beginning of the month, I just peeked the timing of that situation, and it really to me was an imprint. It was an imprint, and it really. I've been putting a lot of information out about Haiti from sources that are down there as far as what's going on. But I'm gonna tell you something, Stewart. The first thing I thought to myself was, this isn't natural. And I put it out there. I said something about this Haiti earthquake doesn't seem right. And when I put that article out there, it got picked up by all these different other bigger sites, that have posted my theory as far as what I think happened. Of course, I caught all kinds of hell behind it, but, I had even quoted an article, Top 5 Ways to Create a Man-Made Earthquake, and then shortly after that, I started doing the research about about the oil, and then the oil started coming out. I peeped how Bush got brought into the picture. It just I just started doing a whole compare and contrast thing, and before you know it, Stewart, I didn't uncovered at least 10 conspiracies associated with that earthquake within 2 weeks of it happening. And I wanted to know, one, do you think that earthquake was in fact man-made or man-triggered earthquake since it is on the fault, or do you think it was a natural earthquake that happened?
I think it was man-enhanced and triggered. The whole Caribbean tectonic plate is rising up. And I've said this for decades. I said Atlantis is coming back above the surface. And Haiti, Dominican Republic, Jamaica, all those places are what were the remnants of the old Atlantis. Now,
right.
Now, Haiti, as you know, is considered by the Illuminati to be expendable. The people, no one cares about them.
The useless leaders.
So what we have is a situation where that earthquake in Haiti naturally would not have occurred for a very, very long time, and probably not to the degree in which it happened. It was done on purpose to, first of all, test earthquake as a weapon. It was also for another reason, and I've been talking about this as well, that there is going to be the formation of the North American Union. Canada, U.S., and Mexico joined as one country, like you see the EU in those countries.
Yes.
And then there is an agenda to add the Caribbean, Central America, and South America to what will be called an American Union. And,
right.
And it was even President Reagan 20-some-odd years ago who said he envisioned a political and economic unit from Alaska to Argentina, all under one umbrella. And that's why they triggered that earthquake in Haiti, so that they can have massive amounts of American control over that country and then pull it into the sphere of the North American Union as the first foothold, if you will, in the Caribbean of an American control of that entire region. You'll see the next thing happening with Dominican Republic. Things will start in Jamaica. We already know, if you look at Puerto Rico on the USGS map, there are dozens of earthquakes daily in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. I mean, you can't even see it on the map. There's so many boxes of earthquakes there.
Are those being triggered or not being triggered?
The ones in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands are natural, but what we have now, because of what happened in Haiti, that is now enhancing the occurrences and the volume of the quakes. If you look at Central America, the western part of the tectonic plate of the Caribbean, Panama, Guatemala, Costa Rica, look at what's going on there. Again, massive amounts of quakes happening on a daily basis. And there's another thing. It's going to reach into Venezuela and Colombia, which it really already has. The Americans are setting up a situation so that there is a reason to take control of the governments in South America, particularly Venezuela and Bolivia, which are very anti-American, and consolidate all of it into this massive empire, which is what we're seeing happen. Colombia and Venezuela, which used to be very good friends in South America, are now very bad enemies.
Right.
All of a sudden, the Colombian government is eradicating all of the terrorists. Now they're inviting people to... I was just in Colombia last month. That story is on my newsletter if anybody wants to read about that. Chavez in Venezuela and Evo in Bolivia, they're setups. They are mind-controlled, programmed leaders designed to create situations to force an American involvement to take control of those areas. Costa Rica uses the American dollar. Panama uses the American dollar. Ecuador, official currency, U.S. dollar. I mean, that's really amazing that a foreign country would use the currency of another country as its main currency.
You know what? You got a point there. That is true. I didn't think of it. I never thought about it like that, but you got a point.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so that's all being set up, too, to collapse the dollar so that they can replace it with the Amero, which will be the new currency of the North American Union.
Right. One person wanted me to thank you for Hyperspace 101, Part 1 through 24. Jewel Ashlar wanted me to just tell you thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah.
Another lady asked the question of what you thought about the activity that is taking place in the Gulf of Yemen.
Ah, yeah. Does she mean the political, seismic, or other? What's going on there? Because there's a lot going on.
Well, I asked her, and she didn't. She hadn't elaborated on that. I asked her a while back. I don't know. She didn't say.
Okay, well, I'll do both. First of all, geologically, we're seeing the volcanoes erupt off the coast of Yemen, and we're also seeing in the Horn of Africa, right there at the Gulf of Yemen, a new sea being formed. The tectonic plate, the crust of the Earth at that location, is literally opening up, and the sea is rushing in, so that within our lifetimes, we will actually see in the Horn of Africa a new sea formed, and the land will be no longer in existence. So we're seeing
Well, isn't that happening right now in Ethiopia? Or they're talking about a new ocean that's starting to form in Ethiopia right now?
That's correct. That's correct. All part of the same thing. And that's why no one's giving a darn about the government of Somalia, because they're not going to be around too much longer.
Wow.
You see, the whole thing's collapsing into the earth. And we're seeing that happen. That's very rare to occur as quickly as it usually takes thousands of years, and this is being in decades, if not less, occurring. So,
wow.
Yeah, so we're seeing that happen. But politically, we're also seeing Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Oman, all of those countries undergoing political changes. Of course, now the big focus in Yemen is that Al-Qaeda has had a huge base of training there, and that's what the person from Nigeria was trained to try to blow up the plane landing in Detroit Christmas Day. So everything's focusing on Yemen now, and I'm sure very shortly that government will be removed. One by one, they're picking off all of the Central Asian and Middle Eastern fundamentalist countries so that it's an easy imposition of New World religion, you see?
Right.
It's kind of a battle between the fundamentalist Islamic regimes that want to have Islam as the New World religion versus the New World Order with their Christian-based New World religion. So, in effect, ISIS, what we're seeing is a recreation of the Crusades.
Yes, I would definitely agree. We are seeing history basically repeat itself. I've been saying that now for the past several months, where I'm trying to do a compare and contrast from what was talked about in history to currently what we're seeing now, and I'm explaining to people, hey guys, history's repeating itself. We need to change our thought process because history is repeating itself.
Yeah.
And I see it, Stewart, for what it is in that aspect. Let me see. Another person had asked a question about the Norway Spiral. What is your opinion about the Norway Spiral that took place?
Yes, and I would ask people to go into my news update archives and read about what I said. If you look at the picture, and I think I have this actually posted in my February newsletter, if you look at the upper right-hand picture of the Norwegian aurora or northern lights, you will see very clearly a satellite image. Literally, it looks kind of like a bell with an antenna sticking out of it, and that is the reflection of the satellite, which was transmitting the blue beam image that was seen. Now, I know that there are many stories out there about, it was an alien this or an alien that, and all I can tell you is that was, again, a test of the Blue Beam Project. First of all, they always go into rural or desolate areas to test in case things don't work out so well. And then they go into areas where there's maybe a little more population so they can get some feedback about what people think about it. So they're getting to the point where very soon you will see the projection of an invasion fleet, Jesus Christ in the atmosphere, maybe.
Yeah, who did they see next? Mary Magdalene. I think they said they thought they saw her, and it's ridiculous. That kind of stuff there is just ridiculous. Like, I'm saying, why would you go to that great length? It just doesn't make it. I mean, I hear about how they want to control the masses. I hear that, because there are people that deals with a different reality. And that's something else I also wanted to talk to you about, Stewart, was, people create their own realities for themselves.
Yeah.
There are those who believe that they need to find something external for themselves, of themselves, in order to be saved and rescued. Then there are those of us who are aware that doesn't have to be like that. We can turn inward to find our answers.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know from you, the things that you're talking about as far as things that are going to start manifesting here on planet Earth, does it even matter what reality you're in at that point? I mean, were the people that have a different reality that's not even aware or completely oblivious to the information that we're talking about at this time, are they even going to even notice or even be aware of what's going on?
Well, you have a good question there, and I'm going to answer it, and I'll try to be as careful as I can. You know,
Right.
we each have our own individual mind pattern through which we filter our God mind and project out our version of reality. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
However, as a species, humanity, there is a foundational or common mind pattern for the entire species of fundamental mind patterns to which we all agree, which is why we are part of the same species and live on the same planet, because we've agreed about these certain points and aspects of thought that we all project simultaneously to create the common reality that we experience on a daily basis. Within that common reality, our individual personalities and mind patterns create subdivisions of that reality that we experience as our personal lives. So, when we have mind control and programming and Blue Beam Project, etc., the Illuminati, or the powers that be, focus on that commonality or that common fundamental mind pattern pervasive through all the species so that we all see the same thing and experience the same thing. Now, how we perceive that same thing will be unique to each of us, so that when they do finally beam out the staged alien invasion and there's fleets of vehicles in the sky attacking the Earth, etc., humanity as a whole will become fearful and frightened and see these things and not understand it. But there will be individuals who have a subdivision of that mind pattern unique to them who will understand and not be afraid and not see it the way it's supposed to be for the common species. So
Right.
I hope I explained it adequately, but we will, as a species, experience this, but as individuals, we will have a different perception of it. Do you understand?
Okay, we're at. Yes, I do. I most certainly do. And we're at the top of the first hour. Make sure you log on to my website, isiswisdom.com. That is ISIS-Wisdom, WISDOM.com, for those who are hip-hop, political, social, conscious, spiritual people. If you love hip-hop and you just want to find out what's going on, log on to wordonthestreetsmag.com. Make sure you check out Stewart's website, expansions.com. Please cop his book, Blue Blood, True Blood. I always get that mixed up. And he also has several other books on his website. He also has a lot of information. Make sure you guys check it out. Sign up to his newsletter. I see a lot of you guys on the call. I see a lot of people on the call. There's a lot of people in the chat room, Stewart. They've been throwing questions at me left and right. It's ridiculous. Okay. For those who are not on the call, 347-884-8787, please press 1 if you have a question for Stewart, and we will be more than happy to allow you to ask him questions. I know a lot of you guys are just sitting there like wow. I've been wilding too for the past couple months. Okay, Stewart. So this is for the average person that's hearing this, that's coming into certain openness and awareness, and the information that you're giving out there will blow the average person's mind completely out of the water, just like, whew, like that's a lot to deal with.
That's why God made vodka.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Now, since you've been putting this information out here, have you had any experiences from the government, coming after you and things of that nature? Have you? I got to go there. You know what I'm saying? Because
oh my God. Yes, I have. It's kind of like what's my daily smackdown today? Yes, they do always attack me and around me. It's a lot of sabotage, absolutely. But, and people say to me, just like you mentioned earlier, or actually the caller mentioned earlier, why are you still alive? How come they haven't killed you for doing all those things? That's a good question. And I was told a long time ago when I was being deprogrammed by government people because they thought I was going to die and they wanted information out of me, I was point blank told that I was more dangerous dead than alive because of my training. And they knew that if they killed me and I was no longer associated with my physical body, guess who I'm going to go after?
Right, and you know what? That's real talk. I explain to people that people are that when you transition to a different form, because energy doesn't die, it just transfers.
Yes.
That you become more powerful in that realm than you are in the physical realm. Now, I'd like to touch on the ascension process that's going on with human beings for those who are going through a process. I can tell you that I am going through some serious, I don't even know what's going on, man. Like I'm having dreams that the earth is communicating to me, man, and she got me I'm doing a lot of remote viewing. Like I'm here 1 minute, the next minute I'm someplace else instantly, and I'm starting to understand that we live in a computer animated world. I don't know. I'm trying to explain to you the best way that I can, but this to my understanding that I'm living in a computer animated world, so to speak. Like this planet is I just want to get your opinion. What is your opinion about the planet being a biological computer, if you will?
Well, yes. That's, again, a whole bunch of stuff I have to say about all of that.
Right.
All of physical reality is a projection of both as I mentioned earlier, the species mind pattern with common thoughts that are projected out for commonly accepted realities, and then overlaid or within it are the realities projected out from our individual mind patterns. So, in effect, everything we see in our lives on this planet is a projection of the mind pattern of those living on it. All the animals, all the plants, all the objects, all of those are really not actual. They're just real energies that are projected out from mind pattern. As beings on this world, we are experiencing the physical accoutrements of that world. When you live on a planet like we do, that was formed by molten material ejected from the star, and as that molten material spins into space, it cools and hardens, etc., etc., we live on a planet that is in orbit after having been ejected from the star. And as a part of that process, we, as it orbits the star, the sun, part of the residue from that initial ejection, we're constantly in motion. And we get, over time, the planet moves further and further and further out into space away from the star from which it came. So we are experiencing a change in the energies just naturally from the Earth and all the planets as they, over time, moving further and further away from the sun. And as it does, it loses the energy or pull of that star so that the physical grounding becomes less and less. Our energy fields become more and more expanded, and we are able mentally to access other realities, other dimensions, to see beyond the borders of the physical universe. That's just part of the natural process of what's going on with the planet. However, overlapping that, or in addition to that, is the unfortunate situation where mind control waves, ELF and microwave, are constantly being bombarded, causing mind control and programming, so that sometimes, well, if not all the time, many people are picking up images from what they think are other realities and dimensions, but in effect are part of the virtual matrix of the mind control within their minds. So we have to make a distinction. Is what we're seeing part of the mind control virtual reality, or is it a natural process of our personalities and energy fields as we progress as human beings? That becomes then the difficulty to distinguish between those two. And one of the works that I do and I teach in hyperspace classes is to make that distinction by use of understanding energy fields, archetype symbols, colors, what they stand for, so that you know what is coming from an artificial source and what is coming from a natural source. And that was kind of a long-winded answer, and I hope everyone was able to at least understand some of that.
I'm glad that you took the time out to really explain that. I think that's very, very important, because you're right. We are being affected by these different waves and whatnot, and you kind of answered my next question, which was how is one able to recognize the difference between the two?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm definitely going to have to get you to come down here to Atlanta.
Oh, what they call Hotlanta.
Yeah, it's Atlanta. You have to come down and visit us, Stewart. We have to get you to come down here.
But not in the summertime. I can't take the heat and humidity.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay, so, wow.
Well, you know, I live in snow country.
I was going to say, where are you located at?
Western Michigan.
Yes,
right off
you
the
are.
lake. We're in a blizzard right now.
I was going to say, how's the weather up there?
Well, you got a shovel?
Yeah. So, okay, because you kind of, you just messed my program up.
I'm sorry.
Said something about, and I know. Because now I'm sitting back thinking, okay, what kind of a dream was that I just had now? Because it was so profound, and I can't forget the dream like I had it back in August, and I could tell you crystal clearly everything that happened in that dream as if I had dreamt it last night.
Okay,
and I'm also...
Yeah. No,
I'm also one who doesn't watch television. I haven't watched television in 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I don't listen to the radio. I don't listen to that kind of stuff. So I'm aware about those rays and whatnot, but I wanted you to touch on that too, about what I just said about how, can you just give us a little bit of information?
Yeah, of course. And,
Okay.
I teach that when you see mentally or even physically anything, and you want to know the truth about it, first put whatever you're seeing in pale orange color. Pale orange is a color of absolute truth. If what you're seeing then stays intact in the pale orange, then it's the truth. If it changes, then it is not the truth. So that's one way that you can tell. Another thing you can do is keep yourself in a violet protective field, what I call ultimate protection, which is a tetrahedron inside an octahedron, all in violet. And people need to realize there's a difference between violet and purple. Violet is like an amethyst color, so keep that in mind when you're visualizing violet. That keeps your energy field intact and protected. And ELF and microwave cannot penetrate that. So if you stay in violet, what you're seeing then should be very legitimate and not mind control matrix images. So there's many different things you can do.
Okay. Someone said, I just bought an orange candle today. How ironic. Someone just said that in the chat room. They're too funny. Okay, so now let's talk about these reptilians, man. Like you've seen them before.
Unfortunately.
And what was your experience?
Well, in fact, I wrote about that in Blue Blood book, as a matter of fact. There are different things. First of all, there is the pure 100% reptilian, and then there are the shapeshifters, who are 50% human, 50% reptilian. And so the 100% reptilians we really don't see very often because they're underground. They don't like to come to the surface too often unless they absolutely have to. Although they have been seen, But the shapeshifters are able to change form between human and reptilian, and I was literally inches away from a person that I was with who shifted right in front of me into reptilian form and then shifted right back. That was, and I was just looking. I mean, I kind of knew this person was not what they said. And so when it happened, although I was a bit shocked, I wasn't, really surprised. I kind of expected that. So I have seen that. I've also seen it, unfortunately, when I was part of the Montauk Project all those years. I did see purebred reptilians as well as shapeshifters.
Wow. Now, from my understanding, I'm hearing that these reptilians, or some of them, have have bases now set up on Venus. Are you familiar with that?
Oh yes, in fact, I wrote about that as well. They always had. Venus was their vehicle, and back in the I believe it was early to mid 1980s. A Soviet spacecraft specially designed with a camera that could penetrate the cloud field and the heat and survive for a bit of time to transmit pictures, actually descended below the cloud cover of Venus, took photographs, and sent it back before the ship burned up. Those photographs revealed on the surface of Venus 7 domed areas all lined up in a row, which was actually discussed on the front page of the New York Times and the LA Times. And there was this whole article about how round they were and perfectly shaped, and they looked so artificial, and what were they? And then, of course, the last paragraph of this huge article stated that NASA had determined them to be naturally occurring objects of rock. So, of course, 7 domed areas. If you know about the reptilian race, you know that there are 7 distinct species within the Draco hierarchy, or caste system, if you will, and they do not mix together unless they have to for a particular purpose. But they're part of the empire. They have different roles and functions, and they keep themselves distinctly separate. So to know and see photographs of the 7 domed areas was a confirmation of the fact that Venus was once a vehicle that was used by these species for entering our solar system. So yes, and then of course in the 50s and even the 60s we heard stories, especially in California, about these beautiful Venusians that would come down to the earth and talk to mankind and tell them, about spiritual concepts, etc. And they're all tall, blonde, beautiful people. Well, if you know about reptilian holographic images, many of these reptilians who interface with humanity have on their belt a device that projects a holographic image around their reptilian form that looks like a very beautiful human being. And that's what those people experienced, you see. So when you hear about, the love from Venus, I have to laugh to myself because I think that they love to eat humans.
Wow. Wow.
Yes. It always reminds me of that Twilight Zone episode, To Serve Man, and it turned out to be a cookbook.
Now, these are the particular beings that the Illuminati are currently working with at this time.
Well,
or are they working with? I was going to say. Now, I've heard of the Zetas, and I've heard, which I heard were kind of like minions compared to the reptilians, so to speak, or they're like worker bees, or maybe a step under them, or something like that.
Well, the so-called little grays that have become so popular in UFO lore, they're not a real race. They're an artificial construction. If you take a picture of a little gray and put it right next to the picture of a human fetus, you could not tell the difference. And that's because these so-called grays are nothing more than human fetuses grown to larger proportion and then mind-controlled. And that's why they have hormone deficiencies and digestive deficiencies, and they have these big black buggy eyes, and that's because they're fetus eyes. And that's why their head is bigger than their body. Did you ever look at a human fetus in utero? It's a little gray. That's what it is, you know, and it's an artificial race, you see, a slave race that's been created out of humanity to work for the reptilians. Now, the reptilians, you know, when we say that word, it encompasses many different civilizations. Just like when you say you want to talk about a European, well, are you talking about a Norwegian or a Greek or a Portuguese or an Austrian? You know, which one? They all speak different languages. They all look a little different, and they all have different cultures. Well, same thing with the reptilians. There's many, many, many different kind of reptilians out there from a few different locations. And so I will tell you that the original Draco reptilians from the Draco star system, they are not happy with what the Illuminati are doing here on the Earth, because the Illuminati really have intended to create their own empire based on the Earth to bypass or usurp the power of the Draco Empire. So the reptilians are not happy with the Illuminati at all. Now, if you know about history, and you know that Lemuria, that was in the Pacific Ocean, was a reptilian, androgynous reptilian, and when and when it was destroyed and sank beneath the Pacific, many of the survivors went into the inner Earth and hollow Earth, and that is where many of the battles now are occurring between the Illuminati and the purebred reptilians, both in the Earth and under the Earth. So that's why we're seeing a lot of mine disasters in various places on the Earth. We're seeing a lot of earthquakes occurring as battles occur. You know, it's quite an intricate situation that can't be classified with a lump statement. It really depends on each situation.
Now, this is the information that you have learned whenever you was in the Montauk experiment. Like these cats actually told you basically the beginnings of humanity and so forth and so on, correct?
Yes, and the reason they did was because it was an enhancement or an enforcement to make us do what they wanted. We were told that humanity in general was too stupid to control itself, so that we were providing a great service to humanity by doing these experiments in mind control that would ultimately save the human race from destroying itself. That's basically what we were indoctrinated with.
Wow. Now, I don't know how much you listen to music, but one of the things I've noticed is the archetypes that they're creating in music that you can see now in the industry, where they're using like the Lady Gaga's, and she's literally doing rituals on MTV Music Awards, and then she just did some stuff with the Grammys, and then you know, Beyonce now is coming out on stage with a cat full of military soldiers, but yet singing a song called "If I Were a Boy," and I'm laughing because I'm like, what is military soldiers, all the countries in the world turning red, and all this other stuff got to do with what you're singing? You know, it's just the critical thinking is on point. And I just, what's going on with these archetypes that they're creating? Like, they're creating these archetypes, like these Rihanna archetypes, these Beyonce archetypes. Jay-Z is now a big archetype in the hip-hop community, where something's going on with him. You can see him transitioning out. Lady Gaga, she don't even hide her stuff anymore. Madonna's been doing it. I just realized that when I started going back through the music, and I really started paying attention. A lot of the music artists have been doing this type of stuff and using symbolism. Michael Jackson was a part of it, the whole nine. So I was wondering if you could also touch on that, because someone had a question about that, about what you thought about that.
Yes, I had a whole thing on my website just the other day about that, and I think I called it Gaga Me with a Spoon, because, you know, the whole thing about these entertainer icons, what I call programming icons, like you mentioned, Lady Gaga, Beyonce, Madonna, Michael Jackson, all these globally famous entertainers, and it doesn't matter how they entertain, they are called programming icons. So Whatever they do, whatever they say, whatever the symbols are within their songs are designed to trigger and activate people out there with programming that use them as an icon so that they can control masses of population. So that when people see Britney Spears shave her head, it triggers them to shave their head. If they see someone getting a tattoo, they have to get the tattoo. It's monkey see, monkey do, or Simon Says. That's how the programming works. So when you set up a group of global entertainment icons, all you have to do is have them do certain things, say certain things, have certain songs, and you're controlling literally the whole earth, those who listen to that music. That's why the entire music industry, and I used to work in Hollywood and was very connected to the music industry, it's all programmed. No one gets anywhere unless they're part of the program, literally. It doesn't matter if you have talent or not, because believe me, as you see, most of them have no talent. They can't sing at all. You know?
Not at all, and it's so funny. I say that all the time. I'm like, I'm not working in music anymore, Stewart. I've been a hip hop journalist for a very long time, and I've worked with some of the top celebrities that you see out there now, and I'm still writing about them and interviewing them to this day for my magazine. But it's like I look at some of the stuff that I see, man, and I'm just like, wow. You know, it's so obvious now. When you're awoke, you can really see, you know, what's going on, although the average person who's in a different reality doesn't have the ability to comprehend exactly what's going on. Jay Torres asked a question. He said, what can we do to take back control of our lives and our minds, and how should we handle all of this? He says he feels though that he has a lot of information, but he doesn't know what to do with it all. So I guess he feels overwhelmed.
Yes, and I understand that. And that is why I have entire books on deprogramming techniques, how to reintegrate your fractured mind pattern, how to deprogram yourself, do release work, grow up the child within, merge the fractured pieces back together. I have entire books and DVDs on this subject on how to do it. So yes, if you really want to reintegrate yourself, you have to make the effort and the decision to do deprogramming work conscientiously and consistently without stopping until you regain your own core original personality, which can be done. But it takes a lot of work. And many people out there, and you know, over the years that I've been doing this work, I can't tell you how many people say to me, you know, I like my programming because I don't have to think about anything. I just do what comes in my head. You know, I don't have to think about anything. They don't want to be who they are. They want to be who they're given to be. You understand?
Yes, I do. And see, I explain to people, like, even with the Haiti situation, you know, what I was telling people was, I said, this has been going on now for about 2,000 years. I said the difference is that, and probably even longer than that, but the difference is that you're now realizing it in your own reality. You know what I'm saying? Like, this has been going on, and now you're starting to see what has been written in books of old, so to speak.
Well,
and
the Illuminati call it the hoodwink, and that means by the time you realize what's happened, it's too late. You lost the game. They call it the hoodwink.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's what's happened. You know, they have all these diversions of what's going on, you know, this and this and this. And by the time you're finished looking over here, you realize that behind you something else was going on, and it's too late. And that's what they do. They create diversions.
Silver Rocks asked the question, is the Gregorian calendar off by 4 years like she has been hearing? Could it be 2016 instead of 2012 as far as... as far as 2012, as far as what, I don't know. Maybe she's talking about the whole, you know, the whole 2012 phenomena that everybody keeps talking about. She wants to know, are we off by about 4 years, or is it already happening or manifesting itself now?
She's correct. Actually, it's 3 years, because actually it happened from 1363 to 1366. There was a monarch in Britain who decided that it wasn't 1363 anymore. He made it 1366. So we lost 3 years that way. So the calendar is off. And so, and when you go by dates, yes, there's a general agenda of when they want things to be done, but they change that frequently depending on peripheral circumstances. The big thing now is 2012, and I can assure your listeners it has absolutely nothing to do with the Mayan calendar. In fact, Mayan elders are laughing at people because they said, in fact, one of them told my sister that he said the calendar is supposed to end on December 21st, 2012. He said on December 22nd, 2012, I'll be getting up, making my coffee, and watching TV like I do every other day, and nothing will be different. He's like, they all laughed. He said that's why the Mayan calendar is carved into a circle, because it ends and starts over again, goes round and round and round, never ends. There's been there's been many periods of time where they predicted catastrophe and disaster, and then the world kept going on. It was really related to the Mayan civilization and culture, not to the entire planet. It is also based on sunspot activity. That's what the Mayan calendar is really about, plotting sunspots. That's all.
Wow. And you know what? I'm glad that you broke it down like that because, they put out that big movie where they show,
and that's to put fear. And as I told you, fear opens up the mind and allows programming to be entered. If they had no fear, if you were not fearful, you couldn't be programmed.
Right. Now, is there a way to escape from the quote-unquote so-called matrix, or is it just a matter of you just basically working around it at this point? Once you become aware and once you start the process of deprogramming yourself, I don't think there's a way that you can actually remove yourself from it. I mean, you can, but I mean, you're talking about primitive living here, and I'm talking about for those who don't want to go that route. You know what I mean? Is there a way to escape it, so to speak?
Yeah, I would urge people to read my books, 13 Cubed, The True Reality of Sexuality. In those two books, I very, in detail, outline what programming is, how it's entered, and how you remove it. And if you follow those techniques, you will remove the programming. Now, I will tell you, it's not going to happen in one day or 1 week. It takes years and years and years and years. I've been deprogramming myself since 1988, and I still got a ways to go. Now, I think I'm a little bit ahead of most people out there as far as regaining myself, but I still got some issues, and I still have a ways to go on deprogramming, but you got to start somewhere. You can't just let it go. If you want to regain yourself, you need to start immediately. We have no time to play games anymore. This is it. We're in end times programming now.
Okay. We're at the top of the last 30-minute half hour with Stewart Swerdlow. For those of you who are currently listening in on the show, if you have a question, please press 1. This is going to be the last 30 minutes of the show. Don't just be listening. If you got a question, press that 1 button so we can get your questions in. For those who are not have not called in and you have a question, that number is 347-884-8787. Also, for those of you in the chat room, please send me a private DM me your questions because there's so many of them coming through the chat. I just can't keep up. So just start sending me DMs so I can start hitting them with all the questions and whatnot. Also, when you get a chance, make sure you check out his website, expansions.com. Also, check out my website, isiswisdom.com. Sign up, create a profile, or log on to wordonthestreetsmag.com, and you can sign up and create a profile there as well. Okay, Stewart, we're back. Okay, I'm trying to look at some of these questions that they're throwing at me left and right. One person asked a question: what is the relationship with the Ascended Masters?
Well, I have to tell you, 99.9% of that is mind control and programming. The only Ascended Master you should be listening to is your own Oversoul and the God Mind within. People have all these Indian guides and gurus and all these. There weren't that many Indians alive, that could all be these spiritual guides right now, There just weren't that many. It's all satellite transmitted. If you hear voices in your head, if you see images of these ascended masters who are telling you all this love, light, and peace, put a big brown X through it, use the brown merger symbol that I talk about in my books, and then see if it stays, because it won't. It is a satellite transmission that is activating the programming matrix in your brain and bringing back alters to the front so that you think you're communicating with these masters or aliens or angels or whatever they portray themselves to be. You see? That's the way it is. I'm sorry, no, I'm maybe offending some people or upsetting some people, but, I have to say what I know, and people can accept it or reject it. I'm not imposing it. This is what I know, and having worked, unfortunately, in the Montauk Project, I know that one of the big things they did was to create personas energetically of these ascended masters that would be projected up from ground stations into satellites and then beamed back down to the Earth. And they targeted areas where they had major programming centers like Sedona, Santa Fe, Yelm, Mount Shasta, etc. All of these are major programming centers for the government.
Whoa! Wow!
Yeah.
Now I gotta say it like that because Stewart, are you serious, man? I gotta say it like that because, well, I'm gonna tell you. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and share the dream real quick. At least a piece of it. I was inspired to do this divine spiritual retreat that I'm planning in Sedona, Arizona, and it was Sedona that I was transported to, where the Earth was communicating to me, and it had different portals there, and it was showing me different things. But it was crazy because it was like I was seeing like all these different screens where it was playing back all the things that happened with humanity when it first got here up to this point. It started showing me different things. And then this is dreaming now, okay? And I was even able to see space from one of the portals where I was actually able to see like other planets that are very close to our solar system that NASA knows about and has never communicated about. Other worlds that are close to us. So now, Sedona is a programming center, okay.
In fact, it's one of the only places where the government admits having an underground base. They admit it.
There's an underground base there at Sedona?
Huge. And, I'm sorry, but, if you've ever been to Sedona, the town is like a prop. It reminds me of like East Berlin when the Russians used to have all these beautiful buildings in East Berlin, but there was nothing behind it but these poles holding up facades, and there was nothing behind it. Well, that's what Sedona reminds me of. And, all through Sedona they have these big statues of the javelina. You know what a javelina is?
What is that?
It looks like a big wild boar with tusks, but it really isn't a wild boar. It is a huge rodent. It's like a rat with large teeth. And that's what they have statues all over of in Sedona. And, it's a big la-la town. Like everybody's airy-fairy. Nobody is grounded. Everything is la-la, love, light, and peace. And it's quite the opposite. And most of the clients I have there are breaking their necks trying to get the heck out of there because they said it's just awful energy. They see things in their home. One woman was in her backyard with her dog at night, and these metallic objects just flew around her and started harassing her. I mean, this is a major programming center, and even the name is interesting, Sedona, if you understand Spanish. It means the thirsty woman. Not a very spiritual name. See?
Wow.
And Mount Shasta, all the spiritual ascended masters are living under the... What ascended master lives under the earth? Shouldn't they be, higher up there? And it's an active volcano. So there's a lot going on there that if people think about it logically, they realize it really is not spiritual. It is programming and mind control going on.
Okay. Wow. That one right there, good Lord.
I'll
Okay.
even talk to you about Yelm, Washington, Jay-Z Knight and all of that. Well, I will tell you that I know someone very high level related to government who told me personally that they check on that person monthly to make sure they're doing what the government wants them to be doing. And that came from a horse's mouth.
I had a couple people want to know, do you plan on doing any tours? Did you do tours across the country, especially on the East Coast?
My dear, I go globally. I just came back from Antarctica. Okay?
Wow.
I go everywhere. And as far as the East Coast is concerned, I'm actually going to be there this weekend, but not to do work, more of a personal nature. But anyone who wants me to come to an area simply has to email Stewart. Well, actually, email expansions@expansions.com, or go on my website and fill out Q&A. And of course, if everything is okay, I will come and do a seminar or lecture wherever you want me to.
Okay, good. I was just getting ready to say that's good to know. I'm definitely going to keep that in mind as well. All right, so looking at some of the other questions, because they're just throwing them at me.
Mm-hmm.
Some people ask, is there any hope for us? They was like, they want to know, who is helping us? If there's no ascended masters, then who's helping us, and so forth. What can we do?
And so listen. There's a Chinese saying that says, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish and you feed him for life. So you know what? All the really spiritual beings out there know that if they interfere, they are disturbing our natural progress, and that is against cosmic law. We created this individually and collectively. We are responsible for fixing it. There's no one to come and save us. What point would that be? We would just go and do it again. We are responsible. We need to take responsibility and fix it, not some ascended master or some alien from the Andromeda star system, okay? It has to come from within us. Is there hope? Of course there's hope. That's all that we have. We only use 10% or less of our brain capacity and only 3% of our DNA. What do you think would happen if we opened up a portion of the 97% of the DNA we don't use, or the 90% of our brains we don't use? Think of the power that we would have and really do have within us. That is what I teach in my classes, to open up what is already within you. You don't need anyone to save you. You save yourself, and then teach other people how to do it. That's what I teach in my seminars, Isis. Be your own savior.
That's correct. And someone says it's so difficult, and one of the things I'll say to that is it's only difficult because of the way that you've been trained. You've always been trained to look for something external of yourself. I was writing an essay, and I was asking people, what is the definition of govern, to be governed over? And I said, I think it's one of humanity's issues with the whole parenting thing. It's like you grow up, become adults, and then you put a government in place to also become a parent over you and tell you how you're supposed to act. Like you don't know how you're supposed to act. Like you don't know how to govern yourself, or you don't know how to take care of yourself. And I think that people really need to take the time out and realize who and what we have been giving our energy and power to. You want a parent, but then when the parent goes psycho, then you want to blame the parent, but then you don't want to take personal responsibility to do anything to change it. And that's a big issue for human beings, period, is personal responsibility.
That's right. Absolutely correct. And you're correct in what you said. We listen to what the government says, to what the church says, to what the school says. We listen to everybody but ourselves.
Right.
That's why people don't know what to do. I look out there. I travel globally all the time. And I look at these people and I talk to them. They have no clue about anything. The government says to take the H1N1 shot, they take the shot.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's just craziness right there.
Government says take this pill for your cholesterol, they take the pill. They don't think. Well, if they said to, why would they lie to me? Why would they want to hurt me? They just wear blinders. And that's because we're conditioned to accept whatever we're told. We're not conditioned to have our own mind.
Someone asked, could you speak about the 24 chromosome?
Well, I would if they existed, but they don't. And I think they're talking about the strands of DNA. There's only two. You know, I don't care if you're an amoeba, a human being, an alien, an elephant, there's only two strands of DNA. I said to once at a New Age conference, of course, that's why I'm never invited to those things, about these 12 strands, I said, show me a model of how 12 strands could possibly connect to one another and not create a monstrosity. And they said, well, that's not for the physical human body, that's for your etheric body. And I said, DNA is for the physical body. You don't need DNA in your etheric body. It's just
right.
Well, of course, they just were very upset with me and never spoke to me again. So, you know, you have to think sometimes logically about these things and realize what the New Age has taught you since 1965 when it was created by the U.S. government is basically to steer you in a direction of mind control and programming so that you're fed this information of la-la and you don't know what's real and what isn't.
Right. 1111. They keep asking, this has been coming up in the chat room a good bit. What is the significance of the number 1111?
Yes, for years people have been asking me that question, and that is a programming trigger. 1111 is a programming code, which means to activate to the next phase of your programming matrix. That's what that's about. That goes back many, many years.
Wow. Okay. Another question from Rolando. He says, what is the connection of the Rosicrucians, what is this word, Theosophy? Secret Doctrine Occult Books.
Mm-hmm. They're based in San Jose, California, the Rosicrucian Order. They, you know, for at least a century, the Illuminati have been trying to create different versions of the New World religion to impose globally. And back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, they came up with the Rosy Cross, or the Rosicrucians, which was designed as a precursor or a template for New World religion. That's what that's about. And if you go to the headquarters in San Jose, you will see, you know, Egyptian temples and stelae and obelisks and all these things from ancient Egypt, which are very interesting and curious, but they really have a lot to do with the New World religion precursor.
Wow. You're getting some strange questions in here, Stewart. I gotta just go ahead and just let you know this. I got a strange question to ask you. One person is asking, what is the mind pattern of eating paper?
Yeah, that person tried to get that on my website today. Very clever trick person. But, you know, eating paper. You know, the thing is, that's not enough information because I need to know what's on the paper, what color is the paper, when do they need to eat. I will say basically, you know, across the board, eating paper is a mind pattern of a need to absorb information. Then the question is, what kind of information? You know, what are they trying to download that they're not getting otherwise?
Right. I mean, they've been asking me like this in the chat room like the whole show. You know, they just kept asking. I said, let me just get. When I first saw it, I just started laughing. I was like, are you serious? But
well,
I'm glad I got it out.
It's funny because that person tried to get that on my Q&A on the website. You know, the thing is, sometimes they ask a question and you can't just give an answer because there's other things I need to know about it before I can answer it. You know, you
right.
Can't just say, you know,
Exactly.
some people say, oh, I passed so-and-so on the street. What were they thinking? I don't know. You know, thank you for thinking I'm all omnipotent, but there are some things, you know, I just need a little more information about that.
Well, that's funny. Another question, another person asked the question, what is the secret of the number 9?
It's not a secret. You know, number 9 stands for a completion or end of a cycle, particularly a spiritual cycle. So again, what's the context? What's the color you saw it in? You know, that's, you know, too general of a question. I can only give you a very general answer.
Okay. Another person asked the question, what does the time 333 mean? They said to keep waking up at 3:33 a.m., and they want to know your take on this.
Hey, guess what? I get the same thing happening to me. 333. Okay, let me explain. Background. Between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. every night in every time zone is when the heaviest mind control ELF and microwave is transmitted to the surface to humanity, because it is assumed that most people will be asleep and then they can download them easily. The side effect is they wake them up, because then when you wake up, it resets the program that they just downloaded. So 333 is a perfection or creation. It perfects and completes what they just downloaded in you.
Wow.
Use Violet, use brown merger. Please, people, use the deprogramming techniques. That's why I wrote about them, so that you would use them.
Wow. I mean, this is, man, this is just crazy, Stewart. It's like basically like there is a conspiracy out there to really...
Yes, it's brilliant. And it didn't start yesterday. They've been doing this for a long time. They know every angle, every nuance. They're brilliant in how they do this.
Parchment asked the question, what is your opinion on the pineal gland and DMT? I don't know what the DMT stands for. Do you know what that means?
Yes, and I actually, listen, it's a very complicated subject. I'm going to tell that person to please go on my website, go to my Q&A archives, and look that up, and you will see a lot of information on that.
Okay. It must be really complicated.
Well, because, there's a lot of artificial drugs out there designed to open up the pineal gland, supposedly, and allow spiritual experiences to occur. And I don't believe in taking external items to do that. I think you need to use your own mind to open up your own inner self.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, now I do understand that the pineal gland itself is probably encrusted and hardened probably by the time you're 12 years old.
Well, that depends on what you've taken, medication and food, and where you live, and what toxins have been around you. But yes, most people have a blockage around their pineal gland, but there are ways to open that up. Sea salt baths, frankincense oil, using the color royal blue, using your T-bar balancing, your brown merger symbol. There's a lot of ways to correct all of these things if you do them.
Right. Jeez, what's up with you guys and these numbers? Somebody asked the question, what about 855 numbers in dreams? Numbers in dreams.
You mean
the number 855?
I would need to know the context. That could be an alter code. That could be a trigger code. That could be a whole bunch of things. That's not enough information to decipher.
Okay. Now I want to hurry up and touch back to these other beings. You got me stuck on that whole thing behind the Kuiper belt. I'm stuck on that. I'm stuck on that.
People need to look at that, because that's a major event that's occurring. It's major.
One person asked, do you think that any major quakes in California is going to happen soon?
Any minute. It could happen at any moment. They are happening. Tell the person to look at the earthquakes at the Salton Sea. On a daily basis, there are hundreds of what we call microquakes fracturing. Pretty soon, it's going to crumble. We have the Pacific plate subducting underneath the North American plate, and it's crumbling everything west of the San Gabriel Mountains. And it's going to split the area from the Salton Sea to the Gulf of California open, which is the way it used to be anyway, and that's going to open right to the ocean.
Man, that is just, I mean, and you heard about the swarms that are taking place over at Yellowstone too now, right?
Yeah, over 2,000 quakes in the last 10 days.
You know, that's very disturbing because
It
I'm
is.
thinking to myself, God forbid if that thing ever blows, the whole planet is a wrap. It's a wrap for the whole planet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if that thing blows. I'm just sitting up there thinking like,
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to tell you that I don't believe it's going to be a cataclysmic eruption, but it will be significant.
that's what you.
Yeah, but I'm more concerned about Mount Rainier, Mount Baker, Mount Hood. Those I'd be more concerned about right now. And Lake Mammoth, Mammoth Lake in California, very volatile at the moment.
There's a lot of, you know, Stewart. There's a lot of volcanoes that are erupting like all over the planet right now.
That's right. That's right, and it's getting worse because the
yeah, go ahead.
The tectonic plates are grinding more than ever before, and they're causing magma to be pushed into the volcanic tubes and out the volcanoes.
Now, you don't believe in a polar shift. Do you think, with the stretching that is taking place and things that are taking place with the planet and its natural cycles, what is your opinion about the pole shifts or crustal shifts, so to speak?
Well, the crust is shifting. The magnetic pole moves all the time. The actual north and south pole are not going to shift anytime soon.
Okay, so we don't have nothing to worry about there.
That's
now,
one thing.
that's the one thing. Now, what about this second sun that's supposed to be in our solar system right now? This brown dwarf or this I'm not going to say Nibiru. I believe it's a sun, if that's what you want to call it. But what is your opinion about?
The only brown dwarf in our solar system is Gary Coleman. Okay, so okay, I have a strange sense of humor, but
yes,
there is a second sun forming, and that's Jupiter. It's changing. It's glowing brighter. That's when the 22-piece string of pearl comet that hit it back in the 90s, and another one that recently hit about a year or so ago. That has artificially induced. That's becoming a second sun, and that's going to create a melting of the frozen moons of Jupiter and Saturn so that they become colonizable.
Wow. So then what people are seeing on in South America, so it's in fact Jupiter that they're looking at that is sitting adjacent to the sun.
Yes, and no worry about its effect on the Earth because it's not going to be a sun like our main sun, but it will create a binary star system in our solar system.
Wow. Wow. Now, I was told that we actually do live in a binary solar system, actually. We have a binary star system now.
Well, that's not exactly true.
Okay. You said exactly true.
No, how many suns do you see in the sky?
Well, I only see one, but they were saying that there was one like so many light years from us that's supposed to have another star system with planets and so forth and so on. You're saying that does not exist.
No, that is New Age la-la stuff. I'm sorry, but it's just not true.
I really enjoy your sincerity because I can see your face over there, just like I'm sorry. I don't mean to kill your thought process here, but it's just not happening.
Well, a lot of people don't like what I have to say, and that's okay because they can accept it or reject it. But if someone asks me, I'll tell them what I know, and then it's up to them to accept it or not.
Otherworld Radio asked that, do you see anything happening with the East Coast in the near future?
Well, that's a big
East
Coast.
Type of, huh?
Yes, there's a lot that's going to happen on the East Coast. I wish they'd be more specific. Florida sinking, and as soon as the Caribbean tectonic plate rises up further, all that displaced water is going to permanently ride over the Florida, which is like 2 inches above the sea level. South Carolina is in grave danger of a major earthquake at any moment. The coast of Maine, off the coast of Maine, there's magma coming to the surface, literally causing part of the water to bubble and cause steam to come out. There's going to be a major earthquake in the Boston area at any time as well. So yes, there's a lot on the East Coast.
So there's going to be a lot of changes taking place this year. There's going to be a lot of changes taking place this year that is going to be really rough on humanity as a whole in this country.
That's correct. You're right. Especially second half of this year.
Well, you know what, Stewart? I thank you so much for taking the time out to come on my show, and you have really, really shed some light to a lot of people. We have a lot of people, on this call, and I really just want to say thank you so much, and I'm definitely going to have you come back as a guest on our show again. I'm supposed to be interviewing your wife as well. I told her I wanted to do you guys separately. I wanted to come at her on a different angle and some other stuff, so I just want to say thanks. And one more time, would you please shout out all of your information, your promotional materials and everything? Where can people find Stewart Swerdlow or contact Stewart Swerdlow?
Yes, please go to expansions.com. Look at my news, look at my products and services, my Q&A. You can email us at expansions@expansions.com. We have the whole schedule up there of where I'm going to be, what I'll be talking about, a lot of information on the website. Read the books, watch the DVDs. That's why I did them, so that you would get that information. And I'm constantly working on updating and giving you more and more. So it's been a pleasure, and I appreciate you inviting me on your show. And I look forward to speaking to you again.
Not a problem.